Okay, take it away, Val.
January 6, 2020. The clock is ticking. Tonight on the Natural Progressive, Australian Inferno, building off-grid house in the
Okay, take it
bush.
away, Val.
Tonight on the Natural January 6, 2020. The clock is ticking. Tonight on the Natural Progressive, Australian Inferno, building off-grid house in the bush. Tonight on the Natural. I want to say a big happy birthday to Christine. Happy birthday, Christine. To all of you, if you want to get Christine a birthday present, suggest this channel to sub to. Say a big happy birthday to Christine. Happy birthday, Christine. To all of you, if you want to
Trish or somebody needs to put in their headphones. Everybody needs to put in their earplugs because it's coming through another
okay, I see what the problem is. Okay. Christine is absent tonight. She is battling the evil empire. She wants industry shut down. Hey, Batman fan, hello. I want to say hello to the best people first. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, Anthony, Bio. Who else is here? Is Torstein here? We bring up the chat here. Of course, Pat, the Batman fan. So and myself. Tonight, we're going to talk about. We're going to start off with the Australian Inferno, and our lady in the bottom of the world, Trisha, is going to. We're going to discuss that. How bad is it? Just as bad as it was, Trisha, or has it improved at all?
There's a lot of big fires still raging. Some of them are joining up. They're very lucky in some parts to have had some rain in the last day or so, but one firefighter interviewed by one of the TV channels this morning said, or last night said, they're going to need hundreds and hundreds of millimeters to make any significant difference and to catch up on what they haven't had for 2 or 3 years in most of those parts of Australia. I don't think we've seen the worst of it. In some states, February is normally the worst month, places like Tasmania and so forth. And February is also the hottest month here, so I would imagine that would be the same in Australia. So I think there's worse to come.
Okay, for us Yanks here, we have a general idea of what the continent looks like. Where would you say most of the fires are at on the continent?
Most of the fires have been at the moment on the east coast and also down in the south in South Australia. I think there are some in Western Australia, but for some reason, and I actually made a note to ask this question of the world: why that coast? Because, and also why that part of Australia, because it's a lot hotter up in the Northern Territory, up in places like around Darwin and up in Queensland. So why the southeast coast? Maybe someone like Quebec or someone has some explanation for why that's going on.
So you're saying basically where you would expect the fires, they're not, and where you don't expect the fires, that the fires are raging.
Well, it might be for there could be 3 reasons, and this is only my suggestion, is that there might be more forestation down in that corner. There also is definitely more human civilization and activity going on down there. New South Wales is the most populated state. And the other thing is, I'm going to throw this into the ring. There's a lot more fracking and oil exploration going on.
So
on
you're thinking,
as far as I can make out. So maybe methane leaks.
That's what I was thinking. Yes. that methane outgassing may possibly be, we're speculating,
Yeah,
adding to the problem, making the problem even worse.
yeah. I think it is known that fracking leaks methane into the surrounding area and atmosphere, and methane has a general life of about 10 years. And they've stepped it up globally recently, especially thanks to Donald Trump. But I've also have read under Morrison's regime, they've been making plans to dismantle fracking bans in certain parts of Australia and making it more of a thing. And there's huge coal seam gas reserves as well, so I think they're really trying to tap into and profit from those. So I would suggest that Australia is a significant contributor to greenhouse emissions, and one of the big reasons would be the oil and gas industries.
Yes, and most of this is going to China too. Most of these products,
Yes.
they're heading to China. But before we go any further, I wanted to clarify something with Jim. This is kind of off topic a little, but could you? I'm a little confused about El Nino and how this ocean warming works. Can you explain a little bit about the mechanism of El Nino?
Wow. Well, first of all, I do have a lengthy video on my, a weird echo here. I do have a lengthy video on my channel where I explain in detail ENSO. So if you want the full nuts of soup on that, go check out that video. Science Talk with Jim Massa.
Okay.
In a quick summary. You have an Indonesian low pressure system that moves back and forth, west and east, back and forth. And in so doing, it will change atmospheric cells. It will change the sea surface temperatures. It will move the pycnocline deeper, shallower on the Eastern Pacific. And that controls precipitation patterns, that controls a whole bunch of factors. It was first realized because of the anchovy fisheries off Peru would crash every 7 or so years. And it was called El Nino because it happened around Christmas time. El Nino is a reference to the child in Spanish. So, but we actually refer to it as ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation. So that's really what it's about.
Okay,
it's sliding back and forth.
How big is it? How big is El Nino, roughly?
I don't understand the question.
Well, would you say it's like the size of California, this area of El Nino?
Oh, it covers the Pacific Ocean. It's centered pretty much on the equatorial Pacific.
Okay. So it's not just one area. What I'm trying to get at is
it affects that. I mean, it's coupled in with, for example, Pacific Decadal Oscillation, the Indian Dipole. It's all coupled together. That's why I did a video series on the oscillatory systems of the planet. So just to explain all of that.
Is it happening now? Is El Nino going on now?
Oh yeah.
So it's already started.
It could be El Nino. It could be La Nina, which is the flip of it. It could be in the neutral state.
Do you think that El Nino has anything to do with the Australian fires? That it's affecting the waters off of Australia?
Well, the waters off Australia will be affected. They are warmer, so that's going to affect marine life and so on. And El Nino working in conjunction with the Indian Dipole would have more of an effect of what's going on precipitation-wise in Australia. Okay. And I have a video on the Indian Dipole as well, if you want to check that out.
Okay, so right now, Australia is surrounded by warmer water. Is that correct?
I haven't seen the data specifically, but that would be my supposition.
But Trisha mentioned that it rained a little bit, but would you want warmer or colder water for it to rain in Australia? Or would it make any difference at all?
Well, it's like trying to take a little garden hose that's has very
Right.
poor pressure output and aiming it at a burning house. It's not going to really do much.
Right. And mentioning that,
I mean, my
Like,
understanding, and Tricia, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the rain is really not that significant.
I think it's significant when they haven't had any for a long time, and they're very happy because it must make a little difference to the fires, but not very much, according to the firefighters that was spoken to, or the one that was spoken to by media. And yeah, they've been in a drought for 3 years.
So,
Gonna
so
take-
if I can ask you, Tricia, what I'm hearing some stories that they're now saying that this is all the result of arson. Is there any validity to that, or is that a deflection to move it away from the climate change discussion?
Oh, very, very likely. They've arrested and charged quite a number of people. I think I read about 150 around Australia. I have not heard that it's all the result of arson. I mean, certainly the emergency services managers and the rural fire service chiefs and the fire chiefs in general are not saying that at all. I think some people might have done some stupid things like throw a cigarette out, so they're getting charged for starting a small fire, and there were fireworks that started a fire, I think near Melbourne or somewhere. And you know, obviously people have done dumb things or broken fire bans and burnt the rubbish out in the backyard. And then, unfortunately, in this world, there are some people who have issues, mental whatever, that also probably predispose them to doing things like this. But that would be a terrible, terrible
yes,
thing for anyone to do.
yes,
Terrible.
absolutely.
So let's hope it was all accidental. Yeah. But
Do you happen to know what the Australian government has promised? Has they made any promises like, we are putting every effort to put out these fires?
if I think an extra 2 million for the fire service
That's not much.
yesterday or something, or extra 2 million in the whole recovery and firefighting package. And my God, they need it. Especially, they need more firefighters. Some more have just gone over from New Zealand, and some have come from Canada and other places as well. But they Gladys Berejiklian apparently authorised New South Wales to cut resources to its volunteer fire service about 2 weeks ago. Now that makes no sense to me. So hopefully they're going to fix that.
So you're saying they actually made cuts before the fire started? That they made cuts to the fire service? Is that correct?
I think they made the decision to make cuts at some point. I'm not sure whether that was before the fire started. But what they did was went ahead with the cuts after the fires had started. Now, go figure. and they actually carried on and did that. So that was pretty terrible.
And we also have to note that they're saying that 500 million animals have perished in the fires. That over 100 people have died. Is that correct?
I think so, yes. There are still
That's a
people
lot.
unaccounted for. There are emergency services personnel, which could be firefighters, police, or ambulance, unaccounted for. And there's a lot of houses to go through. I think some huge number, over 1,000 houses have gone now, and there's a lot of houses to go through, while at the same time the services are trying to fight new fires and old existing fires as well. So it's just a huge, huge disaster,
A
and
huge disaster. And the
yeah.
the Australian
they were prepared for it.
and the Australian state just declared state of emergency. I understand. And also, I want to mention here, Tricia, clearly the hot weather in Australia because of climate change doesn't help. If not arson, somehow it would probably happen by accident, by nature. But
One thing I forgot to mention was Paul Beckwith did a few videos a while back. They were really interesting about how all the jet streams on the planet now, because of climate change, are going all over the place.
Right,
and
right.
creating a lot of extra
Havoc.
and more dangerous turbulence for flying, for planes and all sorts of things. They're going wobbly instead of flowing the way they used to flow.
They should, yes.
So that may well be another reason why that particular coast is getting hit particularly hard this summer. These issues.
Tricia, did you look at those pictures of Venus I sent you?
Yes, I did.
That's pretty stark, isn't it?
Some of the apocalyptic Blade Runner type images that the media have been cranking out in the last week or so. Yeah, very scary.
Tricia, do you have any family in Australia?
I've got a sister who shares a time between New Zealand and Queensland, where her partner lives and is from. And I've got a cousin from England who's been in Sydney a very long time. And I've got friends up the Sunshine Coast in Queensland as well. Yeah.
Let me interrupt just for a second. They're asking what happened to Chris. Chris is off tonight. She is having to battle the evil empire, to put it one way. And all our thoughts are with Christine. We're all supporting Christine. We also want to, it was her birthday yesterday, and the best birthday present for Christine is getting her more subs so that she can do remote live video broadcast at environmental sites, and she can leave general messages for everybody. Also, Tony, yeah, man, the Guardian has a lot of good information. I might get a subscription. Well, yeah, I got a shitload of subscriptions myself. Time for Aussies to become climate refugees. Bio. It's looking that way.
They're climate refugees already, a lot of them.
Yeah.
I mean, thousands of them now from New South Wales and Victoria and Kangaroo Island.
I would venture to say that this is probably the biggest natural disaster that has ever befallen Australia.
Yes.
I can't think of anything bigger than this.
Yes, I would say so.
The bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef has to be up there.
Yeah, that's up there. But as far as a natural disaster, Australia doesn't have earthquakes. It doesn't have
bleaching is natural disaster.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the sense that, like a tornado or something. Australia doesn't have tornadoes like the United States. I mean, I'm in Tornado Alley. It's spring, it's on. It's tornadoes every other day, and they're on the news. They're like, run to your basement. You're out, and they tell you, you're out in Target or something. They say, run to the back of the store. Tornado emergency. They freak you out all the time, and it's serious. It's no joke. Just 10 miles from here, like 30 people were killed a couple years ago. It happens all the time. We're gonna. I wanted to mention something else before we go. Can we show the first picture, Oz, that Tricia brought with her? Any of them?
Yeah, is she ready to do pictures?
Yeah, let's do pictures.
Oh, we can do pictures.
Let's do these pictures. These are kind of, it kind of makes a difference to see the graphics. I'm a very visually orientated person. And that's amazing with Paul Beckwith. He always, there's Australia, and most educated people. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I just looked that up this morning, yesterday. That's fracking sites in Australia. So you can see that there's a very high concentration in Queensland.
Okay, so the blue and the red is fracking sites. Is that right?
Yeah, the red, I think I can't see the imprint. Unfortunately, I haven't got my laptop as well,
Okay,
so
well,
I can't.
it's got blue and red, but
Yeah, I
apparently
haven't got them in front of me, but yeah.
that's a lot
Okay,
of fracking.
reading the key here.
Uh-huh.
The red is coal explorations and
Okay.
looks like mining titles or something. Can't make it. And then the pink is coal applications and releases.
Wow.
The dark blue is petroleum exploration and production. I'm guessing titles again. And the light blue is petroleum applications and releases. So that's what
Right.
the colors represent.
The whole continent, except for the what is it? The West is covered with this. It's nothing but mining and fossil fuel extraction.
Yeah.
Well, hasn't the current PM basically gave the green light to a lot of this, or to at least increasing fossil fuel extraction?
Yeah.
Yeah, and not only that, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tricia, the whole Australian economy is based on this.
Very big business. They're one of the biggest coal producers in the world, and one of the things they have is a lot of fracking sites for coal seam, what they call coal seam gas, because they have a lot of coal. So I think Morrison's government are hoping to ramp this up even more. So of course he doesn't want to talk about climate change.
And I have to say this is unfortunate, but he was democratically voted in. So what he was saying was appealing to the voting public. You know.
I don't think so now.
I don't think so now.
I think he's a little unpopular, and he's also featuring famously in some street art because he was on holiday in Hawaii over Christmas when the fires were going on, and he got some criticism for that. So there's a Sydney street artist called Scott Marsh, and he's done some parodies of not that one. I think that's one's about the oil industry, but that's Scott Marsh there in the pictures somewhere. But he did a parody of Morrison. That's the one, on holiday with his family, and it says Merry Crisis when the fires were raging back in Australia. And then there's another one that I think the same artist has just done that shows a burning koala. Have we got that one? Not that one. Oh no, that's that one there.
Yeah, look at that.
That I've seen. Yeah. So exhibiting some frustration from the arts community as well at Morrison's recent misjudgment.
Yeah, he's the petroleum, or not petroleum, but oil, coal, or natural gas prime minister.
Yes, he is. Yes, they had lengthy debates about it in their parliament, apparently. But I think money's spoken, and
money spoken.
Yes. And now the planet's speaking back. I'm sorry, but it's going to keep doing that.
In a very serious way.
Dramatic way. You know, we've got conspiracy there, just to highlight.
That was a documentary. Right?
That's a documentary about methane release. Oh, sorry, that's a documentary about the meat industry, but it does have a big part to play in methane release. But I think, from what I can find out, oil and gas is a whole lot worse. But the meat industry also has a significant part to play in methane release. And I have a personal theory that the amount of methane that is now in the atmosphere, and it's really spiked since Donald Trump and his mates have increased the amount of shale exploration and the gas and oil industry in the States, and gone on from there to other countries like Canada and Australia. The amount of methane in the atmosphere has significantly spiked in the last few years. Also, the number of factory farms and livestock feedlots and so forth has been rising exponentially to feed markets like China. So that methane stays around. You can only see it through infrared cameras. It stays around for 10 years, and they're measuring higher and higher amounts in the atmosphere. Now, Emergency Services Manager from Victoria, Andrew Crisp, told New Zealand media the other day that these fire columns that are happening in Australia, some of them are going as high as 14 kilometres and actually punching through.
Okay. Can you repeat that again? You're saying, what did you say? The emissions from these factory farms? Is that what you said? Go up 14 kilometers?
No, the fire columns from the bushfires in Australia are going 14 columns high in some cases, according to Emergency Services Manager over there, Andrew Crisp in Victoria, and he described them as punching through the atmosphere. Now that sounds pretty damn scary to me, and that's what nuclear bombs do. They burn up the atmosphere, right? Now I don't know about you guys, but I have never heard of fires burning through the atmosphere before.
Okay, so you're saying the actual flames.
My thing is that the amount of methane up in the atmosphere, which is also, I forgot to mention, coming from the permafrost melt or up through the oceans and everything, is I'm suggesting that the amount of methane in the atmosphere, because it's highly combustible, and mixed with oxygen, is explosive. So the increased amount of methane that human activity is put into the atmosphere is also fueling these fires.
Yes, I think that's a real possibility. The science has to come in. I have to ask this question. One of the people in the chat room wants to ask you, Trish, what town was that they ran the PM out of? There was a video where the PM was visiting survivors in the town. I don't know if you saw that. And
yes, I saw that several times. It was on all the media. Cobargo, C-O-B-A-R-G-O. Cobargo. It's a tiny little historic community in New South. Pretty sure it's New South Wales. It's on the tourist map, and these are very tight-knit, close communities in Australia. 200 years old. Some people have been there for generations. My grandmother lived in the Blue Mountains for a long time. She loved that part of Australia too. The people in Cobargo, especially those who have lost everything and don't necessarily have the resources, they have a lot of money to pick up their lives and go somewhere else or start again, were very, very upset at Morrison's general attitude to the whole fire thing. And the fact that he's denying climate change, or was. I don't know if he is at the moment, but he was.
Yeah, they were mad. They were acting like he was just dumping the problem on them.
Yeah, but I mean, people have been killed, and this government has cut the fire service. So of course they're angry because they feel.
Tricia,
Right.
This is a little bit of a non sequitur here, but a popular show here in the States was an Australian show called something like Morgan's Daughters, about Australians, like 4 or 5 daughters. They lived in a horse farm.
McLeod's Daughters.
McLeod's Daughters. It's very popular.
Yes, okay. So that was filmed in Gippsland. I think it's in Victoria, and that's been very heavily hit by the fires. Very beautiful.
Oh, is it?
Part of Australia, so that's sad as well. And I don't know if you guys ever saw a movie called The Man from Snowy River. that was a classic Australian movie, and a lot of that part of the world has the snowy mountains. I think the New South Wales has been hit as well, and one of the ski resorts is just burnt out too.
So when you said snowy mountains, you mean there is actual snow on them, correct?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment, but it's supposed
No.
to have. But it is supposed to have snow on it.
Yeah, they usually have snow in the winter. Yeah.
Okay, for most Americans, Australia is a very exotic country. Okay, even though they speak English, the whole environment of Australia with the koalas, kangaroos, they call their SUVs utes, right? Utes.
Yes. So do we.
Yeah. Australia is for most Americans is a really delightful place as a whole, but it's not very.
I think it regards itself as a mini America because it's kind of similar in some respects. Having states and a federal government and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Also, Australia is a big ally to the United States. They're part of what they call the Five Eyes intelligence services. Australia is one of the Five Eyes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very tight relationship with the Australian government as far as defense, trade, just a lot of stuff. There's a lot of big relationships with the United States, Canada. I think Canada is one of the Five Eyes too. It's
Sure.
UK. I believe it's UK, United States, Canada, and Australia, and there's one more. That's the
Probably New Zealand.
the Five Eyes. Right now, we're going to take a little break and kind of talk on something a little bit lighter.
Actually, before you do, I just went on the NOAA website, and I'm looking at sea surface temperatures around the equatorial Pacific from basically approximately 25 degrees south latitude to about 25 degrees north latitude. And the temperatures are ranging in pretty much from the 26 to 30 degrees Celsius range.
Right, but they have been up to 51 or 52 in some parts over Christmas.
Tricia, what is that in Fahrenheit for us dumb Americans?
I think 48 Celsius is 118 Fahrenheit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're talking
there,
80s and we're talking mid to high 80s, low 90s Fahrenheit.
Yeah. And just before and around Christmas, they were saying a lot of the temperatures are spiking 10 degrees higher than they normally would at this time of year. So
now here's the interesting thing. Looking at those are temperatures. Looking at sea surface temperature anomalies, i.e., deviations from normal, basically, except for the very southwestern tip of Australia, around the entire continent, the sea surface temperature anomalies are above average.
yeah.
They're above average. In other words, it's warmer than usual.
One thing we've never seen is Australia's biggest cities, Canberra, Melbourne, Sydney, looking like Shanghai, with everyone wearing masks, and you just about can't see the harbour bridge from just down the road and stuff like that. The smoke has just been terrible. And we've also had it here in smaller amounts.
Looking at the ENSO index itself, currently the value is about 0.4, 0.5 on the positive, which means it's not a particularly strong El Nino. In fact, it's pretty much can be considered to be in the neutral state as far as where the El Nino, the ENSO index is right now. So it's not a strong El Nino.
Well, that's great news then, right?
I mean,
it's
it
not
could be
heating.
taken as bad news because if it was a strong El Nino, we might have worse conditions.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, but that's the latest data. So
You know, the surprising thing, guys, is that most people were expecting the initial bad effects of climate change to happen in the northern hemisphere, but here
Yeah.
it's starting in the southern hemisphere, where people have actually ran to try to escape climate collapse, and it's happening there first. We can never, try to guess this out. Can we, Tricia?
Yeah, I don't think there's anywhere to hide.
No.
I think all of us over here are just thinking, well, it's a natural human response to think, thank God it's not us.
Right.
But also we're sort of thinking, let's hope it's not us in the future. But we know that with the temperature rises and what's predicted ahead of us, it's probably going to be all of us at some point. Yeah, and that's the tragedy of this situation. It's almost like we're seeing the future.
Now that you mentioned that, I have to reiterate, and I would be remiss not to do this, is that the natural progressive, she is all for natural solutions. She's not for techno fixes. She wants to see a return to a more primitive lifestyle, to shut down this machine, this huge global machine that is heating the planet. And that's what she's looking for. I'm a little more pragmatic and open to techno solutions. And everybody knows, we all know, technology is what got us here. Should technology, but I also want to, they just come out with, on Vice News, a show on geoengineering. They were talking about that we need to employ this ASAP, geoengineering. And this is pretty recent. As Jim and I discussed this a little bit, in the sense that as the situation worsens, that people will want any sort of relief, any sort of solution. They'll be demanding geoengineering.
Yeah, and can I just say a couple of things?
Sure.
The figure of 500 million animals. I had read one media report said that was only New South Wales. I don't know. I don't know that for sure, but there's no way they can know for sure how many millions of animals.
When you think about that, 500 million, that's just an incredible number.
Well, what the media, there's one journalist who was in tears the other day, and she was saying we're just so upset by all the dead animals on the side of the roads, and people are going out into the bush and trying to rescue what they can as well, and try and save their lives. But
it's really, when you use a number like that, it is so big that it's just really hard to get your mind around.
Yeah.
500 million.
Yeah, that's just a guesstimate for New South Wales.
A guesstimate, and in that 500 million, there's a possibility that there, speculation on how many extinctions. They don't really know, but there could have been any number of rare Australian plants and animals gone with this. Well,
the reality is that it's not just those that lose their lives. The ones that are left behind, the mothers, there's no food, so the mothers can't feed their babies, so they're walking away from them, so the babies are dying. And there's no food, there's no water, so they're dying of starvation after the fires, and dehydration as well as the injuries.
I wish Christine was here so that she could answer this. I always thought that animals kind of knew in advance when fire was coming, and they would run away.
That they can't go fast enough. That nothing can go fast enough. People have been trying to get away in cars, and they can't get away fast enough. And some people have been burnt alive in their cars. There's these fires are going so fast. Like I heard 40 kilometers an hour, and I also heard, I think,
40 kilometers an hour is like
They're really fast.
that's like what 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, around those figures.
Yeah, you
they're
can't.
just going-
You
What
can't
did you say
outrun
now?
that.
40 kilometers?
Yeah, I've
what you
heard
said.
from 40 to
40
80.
kilometers, 25 miles per hour.
Okay. Well, that's
I've
still
heard
pretty
from
fast.
40
It's not
to
50
80,
miles an hour,
yeah.
but it's still pretty fast. My maths are not right up on that.
Oh, by the way, I just did some calculations in my head. 30 C is about 108 Fahrenheit.
108.
Yeah.
30
That's all.
feet. Wow. See,
One positive, there has to be one, I suppose, in this terrible situation is that communities are binding together. It's just amazing how it has brought people together, and that's the only good thing you can say about it. But you know, that's
well, that's good.
they're coming together to help each other, to bring in, to donate food for the livestock and so forth. So yeah.
I have something here I want to show people. Okay. About 6 months ago, or I don't know, it's about 3 months ago, there was a lot of talk about plastics in the ocean. We need to get the plastic. We need to stop straws. There was a big thing to stop using straws or to, reuse straws. Well, this is a straw kit. I don't know if you can see it. A straw kit I picked up at Starbucks. And this straw kit costs $10 US. It comes with 2 straws and a cleaning rod, which can
I need one of those for my store.
which can double as to clean your gun. Okay.
The 22.
Yeah.
Good.
Or
Right.
gun.
That's funny, Val, because I've been saying I need like someone to invent a little bottle brush for my straws because I have a lot of smoothies, but it leaves a lot of deposit in the straw.
There you go. But
Hold on.
you use one of these. But Starbucks is selling these now. So and the thing is, it's really the straw they have normally in their store. They just put it in this purse with the cleaning rod, and you can put this thing in your purse to keep straws out of the ocean. And this is, I believe it's $12 Canadian and about $8 US for 2 straws. So you can get these at your local Starbucks. Jim, what I understand that there were some fires in Alaska too recently.
Oh gosh, this past summer was pretty bad.
Was it in your area, man?
Oh yeah, less than 20 miles from my house.
Wow. Was it?
It was
what
pretty.
kind of,
it was sizable.
what kind of
And it was fires all over the place too, all over the state.
all over the state?
Oh yeah.
So this is in like forest in Australia, right? I mean, Alaska.
Boreal forest, yeah.
Boreal forest.
Yeah.
So these fires are out now? They're out?
Well, because of the winter and the snow cover for now, but we don't know if they're really out because it could be smoldering underneath and then they just flare back up again. This past summer was I did a whole video series of this on my channel talking about the crazy summer of 2019 because Anchorage hit 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a record high ever in that city. It never gets that high. It was on July 4th. So it's, in a lot of ways, what goes on in the Arctic affects the rest of the planet. And in some ways, Alaska's kind of like, kind of in the middle of it all with the climate change stuff.
Apparently
Jeff,
so.
there's some terrifying documentaries that have come out in the last week or so about the Arctic sea ice melt too, on top of everything else that we're dealing with. That's looking really scary.
Oh yeah, I talked about that on this video series. I think like, and I got more coming. But kind of to summarize, but the sea ice, the Chukchi Sea, until recently was still not frozen. It was still open water, which is in September, it's unheard of. And so now you have, it's, instead of having ice reflecting sun energy back into space, what we call albedo, you have open water absorbing sun energy, and that's just going to keep things warm. And,
Hey Jim, a big popular TV show is the crab fisherman thing. Do you think that this warmer water is a plus or a negative for the Alaskan crabs?
Negative.
Negative.
Actually, because of the warming ocean, and keep in mind the specific heat of water is much higher than specific heat of air, so it takes a lot more energy to heat up the same volume of water than it does the same volume of air 1 degree C. So the waters, especially in the Bering, are warming up such to the point that the phytoplankton community has been changing over from diatoms to another group called coccolithophorids, and the coccoliths prefer warmer temperatures. And that's going to change the whole dynamics of the food chain and web. It's going to change what the zooplankton do, what the fish do, where the fish move, and that, of course, that affects other, things like the crabs and etc.
So that affects the food supply of the world.
Yeah. Not to mention the yahoos who want to do mining in Bristol Bay, which will destroy the Bristol Bay salmon fishery, which is one of the richest fisheries on the planet for salmon.
So, what is it that they're wanting to mine?
Oh, let's see, lead, copper, zinc, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Which will only last a few years, and then they'll throw all the, the basically the cyanide laden water, washings into the water. Yeah, that'll kind of fuck things up a bit.
Yeah, you're saying they like snow crab legs in the chat room. Both of you guys, Jim, you live in Alaska, and Trisha in New Zealand. You're probably in the best spots in the world right now for this current change. The environment is in the major process of change. Unheralded in history. A super fast change, permafrost melt, fires. But New Zealand is in a very temperate zone. You're further north than Australia, correct, Trish?
South.
South. Okay, you're further south. So
Southwest of Australia. Yeah.
So you're more temperate. It's more.
Yeah, we are. I meant to mention before. We had smoke also from the Brazilian rainforest fires last year coming over into our skies here too. I'm wondering because this.
I must have been on the westerlies then.
Yeah, they apparently come around the globe on the trade winds. But I'm wondering how much impact that particular huge burning of the Amazon has had on creating and exaggerating this Australian bushfire season and making it what it is.
Yeah, it's combining it.
That'd be a good question for a research scientist, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's a really good question. That's I can't make a comment on that, Evan. That needs to be, folks who do that kind of stuff need to look at that.
Because surely it's all connected. What happens in the Amazon won't stay in the Amazon.
Nope. Just like what happens in the Arctic doesn't stay in the Arctic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all this atmospheric changes is all mixing up. It basically takes a supercomputer to forecast and model this. They use these extremely big, but also I think a lot of people here would like to know, Jim. Now you went to university, went to grad school, and you decided to build a house in Fairbanks.
Hang on, before you go there, I need to reply to this.
Okay.
Someone, Ecocentric Homestead says, due to the low angle of incidence, open water, the Arctic shouldn't absorb as much sunshine, except that we're talking about September where the angle of incidence is still much higher than 5 5 degrees above the horizon, so it does impact. When we're at this time of the year, when we get into December, January, then the angle of incident is such that there's no significant input of heat from the solar energy. In fact, in Alaska at this time of year, what determines temperature is pretty much cloud cover or not. If you have cloud cover, things warm up. If you have clear skies, things cool down. So I just want to clarify that point there, that early in the year, September and October, the incident, the angle of the sun is still adding solar energy into the system.
Absolutely. And I want to mention in that recent Vice Geoengineering, that's one of their fixes they were talking about. That these scientists were building this ocean cloud spraying, and it turned the salt water into a fine mist. Okay, it's just not droplets. It's a super fine. Now, I'm not agreeing with it. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just reporting what was on Vice News. Okay, and they were funded by Bill Gates and some other big gangsters, capitalistic gangsters, possibly some funding from the government. But you mentioned the cloud brightening. This is the device that they are wanting to employ to increase albedo. Is this water spraying device to brighten the clouds? And they even showed, what else they mentioned was they want to put these devices on ships, on cargo ships. And so while the ships are crossing the ocean, they'll be spraying in the atmosphere this fine saltwater particulate. And they showed the ocean. I'm already familiar with these ocean tricks, using bunker oil. I've already seen it, but the Vice reporter was like, wow, I didn't know that these ships put out all these trails, just like a jet. I mean, it's exactly like a jet.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, it's part of McPherson's, what does he call it? The McPherson paradox. Global dimming is caused by bunker fuel in the ships. And so they already talked what you said, Jim, about cloud brightening. They're already, not talking. They're actually, they're in the testing phase. That's where they're at.
Does anyone know, is it also true that when you burn oxygen and possibly methane, it turns into water as well? There was something on the internet about that. On
what?
Some credible site. I googled what happens when you burn methane and gases. And apparently when you burn oxygen, it turns into water. Is that right? I mean, I don't know.
Where'd you see it at, Trish?
I'll put the link. Anyway, but it's possible. It's possible.
I don't know if it can naturally do that, but maybe they developed some process, some scientific process that could do that and turn methane into water.
Yeah, well, aren't chemtrails just water vapor from planes burning?
No, there's some unburnt jet fuel in it. Jet engines are not 100%. It's just like your frigging car. Your car puts out all these CO2 emissions. That's kind of BS where they just say it's water coming out of jets. There's combustibles. Jet engines are not 100% efficient. It's not just clean water coming out of the back of a jet engine.
Yeah.
And so that's propaganda, that they say to tell people, well, no, jet engines, they just put out water. Right, sure. Jim, can we go back?
Yeah, just remember though that like when you what comes out the tailpipe in your vehicle isn't just CO2, it's also water vapor. Well, studies have now shown that water vapor and CO2 in conjunction increase the warming effect because water vapor is a greenhouse gas.
Yeah, also that too. And even that, your lame ass excuse, Jim, So how long did it take you to build this house in Alaska?
3 years being a weekend warrior.
Oh my God, man,
I mean, I was working full time at the time, so
and you're
I couldn't do this. You know, I couldn't do this every day, so I had to wait till the weekends to get the pneumatic nailer out.
yeah, and you're sitting in the house that you built right now.
Yes, I am.
Okay, now you said you're on grid, but you're kind of off grid too because you have to bring in your own water. Can you tell us about that?
Well, up here in Alaska, especially when you start getting interior Alaska, you pretty much have permafrost, and it's very difficult to drill for a well. You probably can't even find a water table. So a lot of places are what we call dry cabins. They're cabins without plumbing. So you have an outhouse, you don't have an indoor toilet. I lived like that for many, many, many years. And,
Wow.
so when I built this house, yes, I have plumbing, and I have an indoor shower and so on, but I have a holding tank. So I haul water home. I have
How big is
150.
it?
It's a 400-gallon holding tank. It's in the house, so it won't freeze.
Oh, it's in the house.
It's in the house. It's in the bathroom.
Okay, did you say it was 50 or 500 gallon?
The 400-gallon tank.
400-gallon tank in your bathroom?
Yeah.
Do you have
I beefed up the floor. I put my joist 12-inch centers, and I beefed it up with several layers of plywood. Oh yeah, no, it's not going anywhere. But I have a 150-gallon tank in my truck. I fill that up, drive it home. I have a pump, and I pump the water over.
In fact, in Alaska, they have like kiosk on the side of the road where you can fill up your water, right?
Yeah, well, there's water fill stations. Yeah.
It's like coin operated or something, or you put dollar bills in it.
Yep, exactly.
That's how it works. You back up your truck, you put some dollar bills, load the water.
Yep.
It in, take it home and make take a nice hot.
We get it. That goes on. When I was living in the cabin, we have a lot of people have 5-gallon, 7-gallon containers that they fill up and use that. I used to have what's called an oil drip stove with a nice flat platform on it. That I used to have this big, huge pot that I used to melt snow in. And that served two purposes. It would be a humidifier for the cabin, but at the time I had a sled dog team, and that was warm water that I would pour over their food when I fed them.
Okay, where do you keep the sled dogs at?
Well, the sled dogs are all gone now, but
well, when you did have them, where did you keep them?
They're outside.
They're outside, so they can withstand.
Oh gosh, yes. I had some of my dogs. If I brought them into the cabin, within 30 minutes, I had to put them back outside. They're overheating. But sled dogs are extremely hardy animals. They're not your typical Fido. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They're not. They're a different type of dog.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. And you got these dogs. They're kind of like people had them, and they were like, "Can you take this dog?"
All the dogs I had were rescues. Yeah.
Rescues.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I understand correctly, when you have a sled dog team, you have like one dog that's the leader.
Sometimes two.
Sometimes two.
Yeah.
Okay. And can you mix like the males and the females?
As long as the females weren't in season.
Okay. Okay.
That could cause it. But most of my dogs were spayed and neutered.
Okay. So if I understand you correctly, to live in Alaska, kind of semi-bush, you have to bring in your own water. Do you use propane?
No. My cook stove is electric. I could have gotten a cook stove that runs on propane, but you need you would if you try to use like a typical 20-gallon propane tank, for your barbecue grill, when you start getting really cold, it's not going to flow. So you're not going to be able to fire up the stove. So you need the big 100-pound bottles.
Right.
It's just, one less hole to put through the wall.
How about your internet situation?
That's That's always entertaining here.
Okay, so you're kind of in between civilization and the bush, kind of in the middle, right?
Semi-off.
Yeah, that's kind of one way of putting it.
One more question about this, Jim. Did you build your house out of logs?
No, frame.
Frame. Okay, so it's a kind of conventional house.
Yep.
And one last question. Sorry.
See,
sorry.
the thing is with okay, if you build with log, first of all, you have a much higher thermal mass, so it takes longer to heat up because you have to heat up the logs first before you can heat up the air inside the structure. So so it's more thermal mass, and the R value isn't as high as with the conventional framing insulation. I use 2x6 framing, but I also what we call furred out the walls. So I made the walls thicker, and I put in some Thermax stiff insulation boards. So my walls are basically R33 for the insulatory value, which is much higher than I could get with an 8-inch log wall.
Hey,
So-
Jim, during the winter, do you have to keep your vehicles running, or what do you do? Do you put like something down the dipstick?
Well, I also built a garage, so I keep my vehicles in the garage.
Okay, so you don't need to keep them running or do anything special then, right?
You have plugins, so you have an oil pan heater. If you have an automatic transmission, you have a transmission pan heater. You have a battery heater. You have an engine block heater or an engine circulatory heater. So you plug it in, and 2 to 4 hours, depending on the outside temperature, you should be able to get the vehicle going.
So to be an Alaskan, you basically have to be a pretty tough sort of person. Also, you get a check from the Alaskan government for about $5,000 every year, don't you?
Nope,
Didn't they used to do that?
never that high.
Okay,
Never that
how
high.
much was the check?
It depends on the previous 5-year running of the stock market. It varies. It's been as low as 500. It's been, I think, the highest maybe $2,700 one year. But the governor in the last few years has decided to take half of our dividend because we got to pay for government services. So it's taken right from the people, the ones who need it the most. Because it's a lot of it's not spent on frivolous things. We're using to like pay for heating fuel, pay for whatever, bills.
Right, pay for.
It's not just let's take a vacation to Hawaii.
Right.
No, it's not. It's nothing like that. No, it's never been 5,000. Never.
Wow.
Norway does a similar thing, by the way.
Yeah, it's hard to believe me. That's the only state that actually does that. That's generous to their citizens, as little as it is.
Well, the reason for that is because basically the oil is stated in the Alaska Constitution belong to the people. So basically, it was a way to say to the oil company, you're not going to just take it and leave.
Right. Yeah. It must be really amazing living in Alaska, Jim. What a wonderful place.
It's certainly entertaining. Earlier today, I looked out my kitchen window and there was a moose sitting there in the driveway.
Just like Derek Jensen, he's got a friggin' bear outside his window.
So you don't just open up the door and step out. You have to kind of look first.
Yeah, living the dream. Absolutely. Yeah, you're living the absolute dream. I don't want to keep Oz on here much longer. We had a lot more topics. We're not going to be able to get into them tonight. And
the one other thing I do want to mention is that the water heater I use is a on-demand wall-mounted water heater.
Yeah, how much does that run, man?
What do you mean by run?
Money. How much money? How much?
I mean to buy it?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, did I pay $700 or $750 for it? I can't remember.
Okay.
Which is about.
We're going to talk about this some more because a lot of people are interested in this sort of thing, and like I said, there's a lot more to talk about, but we have to go. We're going to hit on a lot of stuff. If everybody could help Christine out and suggest that their friends sub to her so that she can make these live videos, and that would be much appreciated. She can do so much. She's just short of like 25 people, 25 more subs, and she'll be able to do so much. And I want to thank everybody, Daniel, Don, Basil.
Okay, there's a couple of comments I need to
Let's hit
answer.
the comments here.
Okay.
Man.
Bio2 says, what do I mean by Norway? Norway also has a dividend program for their folks there on the oil revenue. Basil is asking, saying something about 1 foot diameter? When you look at the R value per inch compared to stick framing with insulation, stick framing with insulation has a higher R value. That's just the data. So yeah, a 1 foot thick logs, which is hard to find nowadays, 1 foot thick diameter. Yeah, sure. That will give you some R value, but it's not going to be as high as if I built a wall that's 1 foot thick with insulation in it. That's just the physics.
Absolutely. Okay. Trisha, God, what can I say? You really painted a picture of the situation, of the inferno in Australia and the horrendous situation that many people in Australia are going through, and the animals. And I know this is just really, we're all just hating this situation. If only, it could just be like the GOP, their headquarters burned instead of Australia, but a lot.
Guy McPherson made a point in an interview over the weekend, I think with the Head in the Box boys on their channel, that he thinks the rich are just wanting to have a big party because they know what's coming and they're not going to do anything about climate change, and worse, they're going to go after whatever they can get. So that's a horrible thought.
Agreed. And
Sorry to end on a negative note, but that's probably the truth.
That's absolutely true. And thank God that you're in Kiwi land and Jim's in Alaska, and I'm probably in not that good of a place in Indiana. So so good for you too.
Well, if anyone wants to cool off, come to Fairbanks. It's about minus 36 right now. Fahrenheit.
Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for the Natural Progressive. She is the defender of nature, and she's out on a mission. And I want to thank everybody. We'll see you soon. Thank you for coming. Okay, Oz, we're good.
Yeah, bye, folks.
Bye.
And check out my channel, Science Talk with Jim Massa. Lots of videos there. Bye, Trish.
Bye.
She ain't going yet. She's still here. Okay, are we all on?